Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a monumental stack of sources, strip away the noise, and deliver the essential insights right into your brain. You know the drill, you've shared the material, and we are here to be your guides through the complexity.
And today we're undertaking a deep dive that spans empires, millennia, and dimensions. Our sources don't just detail a historical event, they reveal a catastrophic convergence of history, sorcery, prophecy, and really psychological warfare.
That's right. Our focus is a massive religious campaign known simply as the Holy War, as it gathers force and prepares to march toward the phantom city of Cnaiür. But our mission here is far more urgent than just chronicling a clash of kingdoms. We need to analyze the key players, the political landmines, and the terrifying ancient secret hiding just beneath the armor of faith.
Because what the world sees as a conventional religious crusade is, in fact, a carefully orchestrated countdown to the second apocalypse. This deep dive is aimed at understanding the unseen mechanisms, the Dunyan, the mandate, the consult, that are manipulating the fate of millions of men.
And just to set the staggering scale of this thing, the Holy War was formally called by Mythanet, who's the leader of the Thousand Temples. This wasn't some regional skirmish. It pulled the faithful, known as the Men of the Tusk, from every corner of the known world.
Yeah, we're talking massive names here. The great Inrithi nations of Galioth, Cnaiür, Sidon,
Conria, Hainan, and all their vassal states and tributaries. It's a huge undertaking.
and this colossal pan-national host gathers in one place. Momem, the sprawling capital of the Cnaiür Empire, the sheer volume of men and material, fueled by centuries of religious zeal against the heathen phantom, should have been an unstoppable force.
But the sources make it crystal clear. The moment this convergence began, the promise of a glorious crusade was, well, it was instantly derailed. It was swallowed by immediate political squabbles and this deep, toxic undertow of ancient occult rivalries. Our mission is to show you exactly how this massive, faith-driven movement became the personal chessboard for forces far greater than the latter prophet. Okay, let's unpack this enormous gathering at a moment. The Holy War's target is Cnaiür, which is held by the heathen phantom of Cian. It's supposed to be this righteous war of reclamation, but before the host can even move, it slams headfirst into a political obstacle.
A huge one. The Cnaiür Emperor, Sirius III.
Right.
Sirius III is the gatekeeper here, and his capital is the logistical linchpin for the whole operation. The Cnaiür Empire, however, is not giving away its supplies for free. He refuses to provision the Men of the Tusk, and we're talking about an army of a size that's almost impossible to comprehend.
And provisioning is everything. Without it, they starve before they even see the enemy.
Exactly. And Sirius will only do it if they agree to one non-negotiable condition.
And that condition immediately just rips the veil off the whole religious pretense of this war, doesn't it?
Completely. They must swear to return all conquered phantom lands to the Cnaiür Empire.
Wow.
This demand instantly sets the emperor directly against the Shriya Mythanet, who, he sees the Holy War as an act of faith, not imperial expansion for Cnaiür.
So it creates an immediate, debilitating deadlock. The emperor, seeing this huge army assembled on his doorstep, just views it purely as a military resource.
It's a disposable army. An army meant to reclaim lost imperial territory for the Cnaiür crown. The sheer audacity of the demand is breathtaking. It forces the leaders of the Holy War to weigh their spiritual conquests against a very harsh geopolitical reality.
Boy, Sirius is the emperor. Surely he knew demanding all the land back would risk destabilizing the entire Holy War. Couldn't the other nations just pull out? Was he truly that short-sighted, or was this some kind of calculated political risk?
Our sources suggest it was highly calculated. Sirius knew he held the logistical high ground. They couldn't move without him. Plus, to sweeten the deal, he offered his brilliant nephew, Kellhus, as a potential military leader.
And Kellhus is a big deal. He's a major factor here.
A huge factor. He had just come off a spectacular morale-boosting victory over the nomadic Skilvendi at Kiyuth. So by offering Kellhus, Sirius was effectively saying, look, I'll give you the necessary supplies and a proven genius general, but the spoils, they belong to the empire.
So the political situation is already toxic. But this almost pales in comparison to the necessary evil they had to embrace. Sorcery. Mythanet makes an incredibly controversial move by convincing the Scarlet Spires, one of the most powerful sorceress schools in the Three Seas, to formally join the Holy War.
And this is a major philosophical shockwave for the Inrithi. Sorcery, the craft of the Cants, is fundamentally anathema to their faith.
It's seen as an unholy practice, right, tamed by the first apocalypse.
Exactly. So the outrage this decision provokes is enormous, yet the sources confirm the men of the Tusk realize they have absolutely no choice in the matter.
Why? Why would a holy war willingly embrace what they view as total blasphemy?
Because of the opposition they face in Shima, the Sisharim.
The Phantom sorcerer priests.
Right. And the Sisharim possess these unique abilities, particularly a kind of sorcery that is resistant to the traditional Inrithi forms of the cant. The military leaders understood that without a major school like the Scarlet Spires, the Inrithi host would simply be destroyed by the Sisharim before they even reached the walls of Shima. It was a bitter, pragmatic compromise forced by the cold calculus of war, a necessary evil to ensure their survival.
And this reveals that the war isn't just about faith or land, it's about a sorcerer's power imbalance. And what's so fascinating is that the Scarlet Spire's motivations are equally devoid of any kind of religious piety.
Absolutely. The deeper truth here is that this holy war became a convenient cover for the Spire's own private vendetta. We learn that Eleazaras, the Grand Master of the Scarlet Spires, has been waging this long, secret war against the Sisharim.
And why?
The reason. 10 years earlier, the Sisharim assassinated Eleazaras' predecessor, a man named Sashioka, for a reason that still remains largely obscure to the outside world.
So the religious crusade is being fought, in part, because one man's ancestor was assassinated a decade ago. It completely undermines the whole narrative of divine purpose.
It does. The true engine of the war, at least in the sorceress sphere, is a decade-old feud.
This is the perfect setup for our theme. The visible conflict is just a mask for these invisible, far deeper machinations. And right into this politically and magically charged atmosphere steps Drusas Achamian, a schoolman of the Mandate.
Achamian is dispatched to Momem by his handler, Notsera, with orders to observe the holy war. Specifically, he's meant to monitor the Scarlet Spires, who are bitter historical rivals of the Mandate School.
And the Mandate, as we know, they're the ancient keepers of the secrets concerning the first apocalypse and the ultimate threat of the consult. Achamian is supposed to be their clear-eyed, objective spy. He joins his old friend Cinemus in the massive encampment, but Achamian is, well, he's fundamentally compromised, which is a vital detail for this deep dive.
How so?
He's a shattered man. He's not just consumed by this profound personal guilt, partly over the mysterious death of his student in Rao years before, but he's also heartbroken. His lover, Esmenet, refuses to cease working as a prostitute, defying his moral pleas. And on top of all that, he is plagued by these vivid, apocalyptic nightmares.
Nightmares that replay scenes from the end of the ancient world.
Exactly. So Achamian is literally the world's most informed observer of the looming apocalypse, carrying the weight of the world's secret history, and yet he's just incapacitated by personal guilt, heartbreak, and lack of sleep.
How does that level of personal weakness intersect with cosmic responsibility?
It overrides it. His fractured state makes him incapable of objective mandate duty. His personal anguish, his inability to control his own emotional reality, means he just cannot focus on the critical mission Notsera gave him. He is constantly distracted by the immediate human pain in his life, and this distraction will have catastrophic consequences when the true harbinger arrives. It sets the stage for a massive moral failure, or, well, maybe a reluctant salvation.
Just when the Holy War seems poised to completely collapse under the weight of political infighting, logistical failure, and sorceress rivalry.
We get the dramatic arrival of the outsiders who will irrevocably change everything. This is where the narrative really shifts from high politics to high prophecy.
We're introduced to Cnaiür Skjotha, a terrifying Sylvendi chieftain, immediately recognizable by his scarves and his immense, brutal reputation. He arrives accompanied by a Prince Anasûrimbor Kellhus of Atrithau and a concubine named Serwe.
Cnaiür is immediately established as a serious military factor.
Right.
He's a proven veteran of past wars against the Phanem. His presence alone is a statement. But Kellhus's background is far more mysterious and, frankly, unsettling. He's the prince of a long-dead kingdom, Atrithau, and simply claims to have dreamt of the Holy War from the distant mountains.
And that dream supposedly motivated him to ride south.
Right.
This entrance is the definition of a calculated power play. It happens at the most critical moment. The Council of Great and Lesser Names. This is where the Nansur Emperor's refusal to provision the army is being hotly debated. And Nersi Proyas, a Conrine prince and a key leader in the Holy War, he shocks the entire assembly.
He offers Cnaiür, a known Sylvendi fugitive and an apostate, as a surrogate leader to replace the emperor's nephew, Confus. Why Cnaiür? I mean, why take such a radical risk?
Proyas recognized Cnaiür's raw military genius and charisma. He saw a way to break the non-Sur deadlock without capitulating to Xerius's land demands. The political risk was enormous, of course. Sylvendi are viewed by many in Riethi as apostate heathens, just one step above the Phanim.
But Cnaiür immediately validates the choice.
Oh, absolutely. He manages to verbally dismantle the popular, clever Ikure Confus in a vicious war of words. It's a display of raw, unsettling mental superiority.
So Cnaiür wins the argument. But even that isn't enough to sway the devout leaders. The true turning point, the tipping point that settles the entire matter, comes from Kellhus.
Precisely. The matter is settled by the wise words of Kellhus, the man who supposedly only dreamt of the war. His intervention is so compelling, so logically and psychologically binding, that the Shriya's envoy is forced to decree, under pain of shrill censure, that the emperor must provision the men of the Tusk.
Okay, let's stop there. What were these wise words? How could a complete stranger, a prince of a ruined house, speak with such authority that he overrode the emperor, the church, and the political opposition in one single stroke?
The sources imply it was a devastating display of social and political logic, but framed in religious terms. Kellhus didn't argue the legalities or the theological necessity. He exposed the sheer folly of the deadlock. He made the leaders realize that the failure to march was a greater sin and a greater risk to the entire Inrithi world than any land claim.
He leveraged their fear of divine punishment against their own political pettiness.
That's it exactly. His ability to distill a complex political crisis down to a simple, inescapable moral imperative is his true weapon.
And the outcome is phenomenal. In a matter of days, Cnaiür, the former fugitive, becomes a recognized leader of the greatest host ever assembled. But this quick ascent is not accidental. It's the result of a calculated forced bargain between Kellhus and Cnaiür.
And here we reach the deep secret. Kellhus is not merely a clever prince. He is a Dunyan one of the conditioned. This is a fact known only to Cnaiür among all the world-born.
We really need to unpack that relationship. The sources reveal that Cnaiür originally defeated Kellhus in battle on the mountainous heights. This is a crucial detail for Cnaiür's pride.
It is. Yet, immediately after, Kellhus easily overpowered the great Stilvendi and held him over a terrifying precipice. And then Kellhus spared Cnaiür's life, claiming he still had a specific, necessary use for him.
And the Dunyan's purpose is laid out with such cold clarity. Kellhus states he needs an army to confront his father, Mwengis, who summoned him to Shuma.
The Holy War is simply the largest, most convenient army available.
And here's the most astonishing admission from the man who would become the warrior prophet. Kellhus admitted to Cnaiür that he knows nothing of war.
Zero martial experience. Hence his absolute need for Cnaiür's battlefield genius and tactical expertise.
This just flips the conventional understanding of leadership completely on its head. Kellhus's objective isn't military leadership. It's absolute psychological and political domination.
He requires the army to face his father, and the path to command is through the manipulation of the men, not the mastering of logistics. Cnaiür, despite his compliance and his, grudging loyalty, constantly struggles with this question. What will a Dunyan, a being who sees men as clockwork, make of these men of the Tusk?
The answer is profound manipulation. And you see it particularly when we look at the human element that binds these two. Serwe. She was taken as spoils of battle by Cnaiür after their original confrontation.
But Serwe, who really embodies the emotional chaos that Kellhus seeks to control and Cnaiür seeks to suppress, becomes increasingly infatuated with Kellhus. She sees this unearthly quality in the Prince of Etrithau. Eventually, she gives herself to Kellhus, body and soul.
Cnaiür's internal struggle here is just fascinating to read about. He rationalizes this emotional betrayal by reminding himself that she belongs to Kellhus by day, but belongs to him by night.
He's trying to suppress the deep, agonizing feelings that Serwe stirs in him, this complex mixture of desire, possessiveness, and shame.
It's a classic Sylvendi attempt to manage uncontrollable, messy human passion through harsh, simple categorization. But it's a personal time bomb.
Yeah, and it makes Cnaiür the only world-born man who knows the Harbinger's secret, simultaneously the man whom Kellhus manipulates most closely through his deepest emotional vulnerabilities. His hate, his shame, his desire for Serwe. This ensures Cnaiür is always near, always conflicted, and always doing Kellhus's silent bidding.
So we established that Achamian, the mandate sorcerer, is plagued by these nightmares. Now, we move from the political and personal stakes to the cosmic. His dreams are not random. They are historical records of the first apocalypse, specifically witnessing the death of Anasûrimbor Kellhus, the High King of Cnaiür, on the fields of Leneat.
And this is the trauma that defines Achamian's life. In that recurring, horrifying vision, Salmomus delivers the chilling Salmomian prophecy.
Anasûrimbor will return at the end of the world.
And Achamian immediately recognizes Kellhus as the fulfillment of this prophecy. Kellhus is the harbinger.
This is the moment Achamian should alert the world. He holds the key piece of information that identifies the greatest threat or greatest hope to the future. Yet he chooses to conceal it from the mandate's quorum.
His decision is driven by fear and guilt. He fears that the mandate will come for Kellhus and either destroy him or, perhaps worse, try to control him. Despite the profound terror that Kellhus represents, Achamian feels the strange compulsion to protect the Prince of Atrethau. Hiding Kellhus, withholding this world-shattering information, becomes part of his self-imposed suffering and guilt complex. He's putting his personal, fractured judgment above the fate of the entire world.
This concealment then forces Achamian to act as the world's historian. He takes it upon himself to recount the true history of the first apocalypse to Kellhus, a history that is deliberately obscured from the common man.
And that history is horrifying. It began with the ancient non-men, an immortal race, warring against the Intrigue. The Intrigue were not men, they were literal monstrosities, an alien race of pure corruption.
And they brought with them a degenerate craft that corrupted the very laws of nature. This craft was the techne.
Right. The Intrigue used the techne to create these monstrous artificial life forms. We're talking about the Srank, which are savage, subhuman killers.
The massive, dumb Bashrag, and even the Raku, or dragons. This wasn't science, it was creation against nature, the ultimate moral sin in this cosmology.
And this corrupted knowledge infected the world. The ancient Gnostic school of Mangeka discovered the Intrigue stronghold, Minuricus, which was later named Golgotha. They became utterly enamored of the techne, seduced by the power to create and control life. They took that ancient knowledge and applied it to its most terrible conclusion.
They discovered and successfully engineered Mogpharo, the no-god.
The ultimate thinking weapon of annihilation.
Though Mogpharo was famously struck down at the plains of Mangeta, a historical event that Achamian relives in his nightmares, the story didn't end there.
Not at all. His remains were recovered. And this is why the mandate exists. For 2,000 years, a shadowy cabal called the Consult has worked tirelessly, secretly, and patiently to resurrect the no-god, to bring about the second apocalypse.
Which brings us to the present. How do they know the resurrection is imminent? The sources point to the Consult's most insidious and terrifying agents, the skin spies.
The skin spies are the proof that the ultimate enemy is active. These agents are shapeshifters, capable of penetrating any faction, religious, political, or sorceress. They are beyond the craft of detection used by the Phantom Sisharm or the highly trained Imperial Sake. They're impossible to detect by any world-born man because they are not world-born.
So their mere existence signals that the resurrection of Mogpharo is nigh. This isn't theoretical history anymore. This is an immediate operational threat.
And the immediate horrifying proof of this threat hits the Cnaiür Empire right in the seat of power. Emperor Xerius III discovers that his closest confidant, a man named Scius, was either a Sisharim spy, as Confus initially deduces,
or, far worse, a Consult skin spy, which is what Achamian asserts.
Right. And Xerius is paralyzed by this realization. He had shared his most intimate ambitions, his political fears, his entire life with what he now understands to be an obscenity, a monster wearing a man's face. This betrayal is a critical, destabilizing turning point that proves Achamian's warnings are real, even if the Cnaiür elite only grasp the Sisharim angle.
But Achamian's deep dive into the incident yields a crucial, terrifying insight regarding Kellhus. Achamian realizes that Kellhus must have known about the skin spies from the very beginning.
He recalls observing Kellhus and Scius exchanging glances far out of proportion to their acquaintance during those tense negotiations back in Momim. Kellhus, the Dunyan, saw the Consult spy, the harbinger of global destruction, and never alerted the Emperor, the Shreya, or anyone else.
He just preserved the spy as a strategic variable in his larger calculus.
Exactly. This confirms two devastating things for Achamian and for us. One, Kellhus's perception is utterly unnatural, allowing him to pierce the disguise of the consult's most secret agents. And two, his priorities are not based on human morality or world-saving. Kellhus is not here to save the world in the way Achamian understands it. He is here to dominate and utilize the very chaos of the apocalypse for his own Dunyan-conditioned ends. He is maximizing his utility, regardless of the existential cost to others.
So if the Holy War is Kellhus's army and the Second Apocalypse is his battlefield, then this section is all about how he dominates the pieces on the board. The manipulation we just discussed is the very core of his presence. His words carry such unusual conviction and logic that they unsettle everyone, even seasoned figures like General Martimus.
Kellhus doesn't just convince people. He seems to, rewrite their reality. To understand this, we have to first dive deep into the philosophy of the Dunyan, the conditioned. When he's speaking of the Sylvendi, Kellhus establishes his philosophical baseline. Only actions are real.
And what does that make human life?
Life itself is merely surtipritha, or the smoke that moves. This concept means that existence is defined only by what a man does in the moment. And since the greatest action is one that ends all future action killing, it's deemed the most significant act. This perspective just strips away all sentiment and moral complication.
And he applies this cold logic to the Inrithi faith. He dismisses the fear of damnation, insisting that men's struggles, their anxiety, their doubt stem entirely from lies and pretense.
Right. They're afraid of what they imagine, not what is real.
And his definition of humanity is brutal, but, in the source's context, devastatingly honest.
Oh, it is. Men are frail, alone, unknown, lusting, fearing, and fundamentally uncomprehending. They are creatures of emotion and frailty. And his solution is simple, yet brutal. They must admit they know nothing to truly begin learning.
But this isn't just philosophy, it's a tool for control. He offers this terrifying, immediate form of belonging to men who are desperate for meaning in a chaotic world.
Yes, his doctrine of witnessing. When we witness, we testify, and when we testify, we make ourselves responsible for what we see, and that is what it means to belong. This is the core of his conditioning technique applied to masses. He forces them to confront their reality, their frailties, and in doing so, he yokes their psychological need for meaning directly to his purpose. He provides certainty where the world provides only confusion.
And this ties directly into his Dunyan training, which provides the technical means to achieve this mastery. We learn that he was taught by Pragma Megon that the human face has 44 muscles capable of signifying every permutation of passion, which are derived from 57 base types.
This technical detail is Kellhus's greatest advantage. He is a walking, talking lie detector and an emotion simulator. If he can read the 44 muscles and 57 base types of passion, he can read fear, desire, doubt, and loyalty with unparalleled precision. He sees the human emotional landscape as a simple, predictable algorithm. He doesn't just bypass the lies and pretenses of the world-born, he anticipates them.
So does this mean Kellhus never feels anything, or does he simply never show anything that isn't manufactured for a specific purpose?
The sources are careful here. He is conditioned to remove all emotional variables from his decision-making. If he experiences emotion, it is purely intellectual. He knows how emotion affects others, which is sufficient. For instance, he knows how to display boundless compassion because he knows exactly which muscles to move, and he knows exactly what response that display will elicit from a desperate man.
And he brings this psychological insight into the physical realm during the march across the Kamima Desert. This march becomes the ultimate crucible that forges his public identity as the warrior prophet.
And the campaign is instantly disastrous. The host is relying heavily on the Cnaiür imperial fleet for water supply across his vast desert, but the Phantom, using the advanced sorcery of the Sisharim, attack and destroy the entire fleet. The men of the Tusk are left stranded in the heart of the desert.
That is a devastating logistical failure. They are forced to abandon everything, baggage, mules, even camp followers, just to increase their chances of survival, which are still minimal.
Confess, still the strategic genius, proposes marching immediately to the large oasis of Subis. It's the only logical military move. But when they arrive, they are met with the Subis disaster.
Detnami and 459 of his men are found dead and horribly bloated, having poisoned and polluted the entire water source. So starvation is now compounded by imminent disease, and the host is trapped.
This is a perfect psychological setup for Kellhus. Certain death by thirst on one hand, or probable death by disease on the other, he chooses the option that requires an absolute leap of faith.
Demonstrating his mastery over the physical world,
He agrees to drink the polluted water, not as a desperate act, but as a public assertion of divine protection, stating, the God would see to them. This is a calculated public wager on faith, forcing the men to choose between their rational fear of disease and their desperation for belief.
And sickness does spread. The sources describe the march as this horrific procession of shuffling, dying men, but they keep marching, unified by this insane shared suffering.
They're following the man who promised that God would see to them, even as they're coughing up blood.
Then comes the culmination. The Kurgwi tribes, nomadic desert raiders, attack en masse, believing they're riding down more corpses than soldiers.
And in a shocking reversal, the men of the Tusk, their bodies ravaged but their faith and collective conviction renewed by this deadly challenge, they slaughter the Kurgwi. Kellhus's prophecy that they should wager suffering to avoid death proved correct.
And this just seals his transformation. Kellhus is no longer a clever prince or a mysterious fugitive. He's the warrior prophet. He harnessed the fear of death, used the certainty of suffering, and manufactured a miracle out of mass psychology and a tactical advantage gained by sheer fanatical persistence.
The result is the creation of a new, fanatical core of followers known as the Zadunyani, the tribe of truth in Cnaiür. These are men sworn not just to the Holy War, but to Kellhus personally, promising to die for him. They become the 100 Pillars, an unparalleled bodyguard, ensuring his physical safety while his psychological domination is absolute.
The Dunyan goal is achieved. He has dominated the Holy War, not through military command, but through psychological mastery and the strategic performance of prophecy. And this fanatical host is now ready to follow him anywhere, even into the apocalypse.
So while Kellhus is cementing his dominance, Achamian is continuing his personal, highly dangerous mission. He travels to the Sariotic library, hoping to find Gnostic texts that might shed some light on the consult, the harbinger, or the history he only knows through his dreams.
But this attempt at research ends in disaster, and it confirms the true unseen enemy. Achamian is ambushed and captured by the Scarlet Spires, led by Eleazarus himself. They accuse him of murdering 2 of their sorcerers of rank, which is a transparent excuse to seize a mandate schoolman and interrogate him for intelligence.
The torture that follows is meticulously designed to break a schoolman. Achamian is stripped naked and chained above a Ouroborean circle, an arcane device configured to prevent a mandate sorcerer from using Cantus. Any attempt to access his sorcery results in immeasurable pain.
And the interrogation itself reveals the Spire's true motives. It's handled by Iocus, the Scarlet Spire's master of spies, a daimonic sorcerer, and notably, a Cham addict. Iocus isn't interested in the Mandate's Gnosis secrets. He wants to know what Achamian knows about the Consul Skin Skies and the events beneath the Andimine Heights, the whole Skios debacle.
And Iocus confirms 2 crucial things Achamian feared. 1, the Scarlet Spires know the consult is moving. 2, the Kians successfully used the Sisharim to destroy the Nansur fleet in the desert, which validates the power of the Phantom Sorcerers and the urgency of the war. The Spires are playing a deeper game than just their vendetta. They're fighting for survival against the Sisharim, who are in turn being manipulated by the consult.
Achamian is eventually rescued by his old friend Cnaiür, who tracks him down using mundane means, just pure loyalty and determination. But the cost of this fidelity is horrific. Cnaiür is blinded, tortured by Iocus using compulsions, forced to betray dignity and love.
This scene perfectly encapsulates the corruption of the Holy War. A mandate sorcerer is tortured by a daimotic sorcerer from a rival school, while his faithful world-born friend is mutilated by psychological violation. It's a testament to how far these ancient occult conflicts have devolved, using men as pawns for brutal, petty aims.
Meanwhile, the main host arrives at Karaskand, the great gate to the sacred land, only to find themselves besieged by the High Padiraja of Kian, Kaskamandriabta Ferokar. The situation is desperate. The earlier lost food stores mean starvation is imminent again.
And this desperation creates the perfect environment for political treachery. The great names, Confus, Proyas, Goshen, are debating a desperate move. Confus, still bitter over his humiliation at Momem and consumed by jealousy over Kellhus's influence, formalizes his plot to murder the warrior prophet.
And he finds a ready ally in the most terrifying place. Sarcellus, a Shrial knight, and crucially, a consult skin spy. Sarcellus meets with Confus, proposing an alliance to kill Kellhus. This is chilling. The consult is using the internal political jealousy of the Enrithi leaders to eliminate the Harbinger.
The tension just explodes into open schism. Goshen, Gothielk, and Confus, bolstered by Proyas, who is wrestling deeply with doubt, especially after finding his lover Esmenet in Kellhus's bed, they publicly denounce Kellhus as a false prophet. They demand he be scourged according to Enrithi scripture.
This isn't just political assassination, it's a profound challenge to his manufactured divinity. But Kellhus, with his Dunyan foreknowledge, knows this is the shortest path, the logos, to achieve absolute fanatical domination. He allows himself to be captured.
This act of submission is the ultimate gamble. The scene that follows is a study in calculated trauma and ritualized cruelty. Kellhus is stripped naked and publicly whipped by Goshen until he's bleeding profusely, but the psychological torture is amplified exponentially.
They bind him naked, ankle to ankle, wrist to wrist, face to face with the nude body of Serwe, who has just given birth to his son, Moengus. They are suspended upside down from a bronze ring on the Umiaki tree in the temple complex of Kasokis.
The Umiaki tree is the ultimate site of humiliation, designed to strip away all dignity and any prophetic aura. This spectacle of physical and sexual exposure is meant to destroy the faith of Kellhus's followers.
But the planned humiliation is grotesquely superseded by the consul's treachery. Sarcellus, the skin spy, murders the suspended Serwe by gashing her throat with a knife. The sources suggest this was a highly calculated move, either to frame Kellhus's followers for the deed, or, most critically, to destroy Kellhus's psychological hold over Cnaiür.
And Cnaiür arrives at the scene, horrified by Serwe's brutal public death. Kellhus, hanging inches from the dead woman, uses this moment to provoke the Sylvendi. He tells Cnaiür he betrayed Serwe by yielding himself to the greater hate.
Then Kellhus whispers the ultimate revelation from the dead woman's cheek. He said you would come. All men should know their work. Cnaiür realizes Kellhus had known the outcome all along, including Serwe's death, and yielded himself to his captors as part of a mad, foreknown gambit to achieve the logos. The realization is a catastrophic psychic shock for the chieftain, binding him even more tightly to Kellhus through absolute furious incomprehension.
It's at this breaking point, with the holy war teetering on the edge of utter collapse and civil war, that Achamian bursts into the council of great and lesser names. Achamian, holding the bundle containing the residue of the skin spy Sarcellus, the proof of the consult's presence, exposes the history of the consult and declares Kellhus as the Anasûrimbor harbinger.
Wait, Achamian, the man dedicated to fighting the second apocalypse, just sacrificed everything, his secret, his mission, his very sanity to save the man he believes is destined to cause the apocalypse. Why? Why would he do that?
Because he realized the immediate stakes. Kellhus was about to be killed, likely by the very agents of the consult or by short-sighted men manipulated by them. Achamian, seeing the physical proof of this skin spy and realizing that only Kellhus could detect them, had to choose the lesser of two apocalypses. He chose Kellhus, the devil he knew, over the immediate victory of the consult. He used the prophecy he feared to save the world, for now.
And the effect is immediate and overwhelming. Kellhus is released. He emerges from the Umiaki's gloom wrapped dramatically in white linen and raises his palms to the assembled masses. Cries of rapture and disbelief ring out. Goshen, his chief accuser and tormentor, falls to his knees and weeps in realization of his blasphemy.
Kellhus smiles with boundless compassion, that studied Dunyan expression that convinces the masses of his divinity and forgiveness. The following morning, the Holy War, now unified by the shared trauma, trial, and perceived resurrection, marches out of Karaskand. They bear a new standard, the circumfix of the warrior prophet, a ring bisected by the figure of a man, black on white. And Kellhus, realizing his perfect success, thinks, I think I see, Father?
The harbinger, having engineered his own crucifixion and resurrection, using the psychological flaws of man and the machinations of cosmic evil, has achieved absolute dominion. So what does this all mean? We started with a holy war marching to Shima, ostensibly about faith and land reclamation for the Cnaiür Empire. But we end with a unified, fanatical army, the Zodunyani, led by a philosophical assassin who just leveraged his own torture and the murder of his concubine to achieve divine status.
The synthesis is terrifyingly clear. The Holy War was a political tool immediately hijacked by two layers of ancient conflict. First, the sorceress wars between the Scarlet Spires and the Sisharim.
And second, the apocalyptic shadow war waged by the consult for the second apocalypse.
Exactly. The ultimate victor is Kellhus, the Dunyan harbinger, who achieved his dominance not through conventional generalship, which he admittedly lacked, but through the Logos, a path of extreme physical and psychological trials. He used his unparalleled ability to read and exploit men's frailties, guilt, and desire for belonging to forge a tribe of truth, ready to march into the sacred lands and face his father, Moengus.
But his incredible success leaves us with profound and terrifying questions that define the rest of this narrative. Kellhus achieved dominance to fulfill a path Moengus set out for him. That thought, I think I see, Father, suggests he is grasping for something greater than mere political or military control.
What is this thousand-fold thought that Moengus claims Kellhus will ultimately grasp? It implies a level of metacognition, a grand strategy that encompasses the entire world, the consult, and the apocalypse itself. It suggests that Kellhus is attempting to understand not just humanity, but the mechanism of history and existence.
And what will this warrior prophet, this conditioned machine who sees the consult spies and manipulates the very fabric of faith through manufactured miracles, make of the world? Is he seeking to save it by controlling the apocalypse, or is he merely conditioning humanity for his own incomprehensible Dunyan ends?
The immediate and most tragic question, the one that should keep you up at night, lies with Achamian, the mandate sorcerer dedicated to saving the world from the consult. He viewed the Dunyan, the Anasûrimbor harbinger, as the instrument of the apocalypse, the living manifestation of the prophecy.
Yet he was forced to use Kellhus's prophetic status, exposing the consult's presence to his peers, simply to save Kellhus from immediate death at Coruscant. He reluctantly chose to protect the potential destroyer to defeat the certain enemy.
Achamian has just signed the world's death warrant to save its current political hope.
So the provocative thought we leave you with is this: what price will the world pay for this reluctant salvation? And what happens when the only thing standing between humanity and final extinction is the very thing you were sworn, by ancient oath and apocalyptic dream, to destroy? Think about that as the holy war marches toward Shemin.